Mike, the aesthetic revolution, the book that you've just wrote, why write it now? And what impact are you hoping that it has, I guess, on society, potentially even on health and wellness culture?
I wrote it now because I don't have a time machine to write it earlier. So it's one direction. That's why I didn't write it earlier. Still working on the time machine, hasn't materialized yet. The reason I didn't write it later is because I have a low key paranoia that if I don't articulate my ideas that I have when I think they're pretty good in relatively like soon after I have them, that I will miss the opportunity to add a lot of well-timed, good conversation and information into society to help people. Like it really would suck to sit on something you think is great and then maybe somebody else comes in and talks about it, which at least they did. That's nice. But maybe they don't. And then like 8 years later, you finally get around to publishing a book you really wanted to publish. And then like say it's pretty well received. And you're like, oh God damn it. Like I could have what in the things in this book could have been helping people for years. I just didn't get around to it. But there's, I guess, another reason is I had long suspected a lot of the stuff in this book was probably true, like how people relate to aesthetics, the fact that they typically think vanity is something to apologize for. But it was really my experience and the experience of people close to me with the new weight loss drugs that started to come out in 2022, 2023, et cetera, that I sort of saw the frontier kind of expand. And I had always, like, not always, in the past 10 years, I had theorized this time was coming when weight loss drugs would finally be like super powerful, super effective. And I realized like, oh, holy shit, they're here. And that means that it's likely that other drugs, which are also super helpful to modifying body composition, are really close to being here with us. And then potentially, surgical techniques, gene therapies, age reversal, and all this other futuristic stuff. Like if you think that people are going to in the early to mid 80s, if you think a lot of people are going to be using computers in their daily lives, and you wanted to write a book about that and kind of tell people like, hey, here's what's coming, here's how to prepare, here's kind of like a good open-minded take, and here's some myths that we want to dispel about computers. It would be understandable if you didn't write the book in the late 70s when almost nobody had a personal computer. But by the mid 80s, it was really starting to be obvious like, okay, computers are just going to be everywhere. And if you had a really good thing to say, like that was kind of going to be the time to say it. Cause, if by the mid 90s you wrote that book, like everyone's going to have a computer, everyone would be like, everyone already has a computer. No shit. So that is kind of some of the reasons why I wrote the book. As far as an impact on society and culture, in my most egotistical days, I don't really ever estimate I'll have any kind of impact on society and culture. I think that's like a shitload of hubris to think. I don't think a ton of people will be reading the book. I don't estimate that it'll become some kind of New York Times bestseller. I don't estimate that most people even read books anymore, to be completely honest. I think it was actually interesting writing a book because a lot of people just don't read books. I mean, they listen to podcasts way more than ever. The book thing, I don't know. It's kind of, I don't want to call it a sinking ship, but in my more cynical days, I'm like, why do people read and write books at all? So I don't know how much impact it'll have, but I will say one thing. For the people that will read it, I hope it has an impact of giving them at least kind of three things. One is an emotional and moral grounding that allows them to achieve a fantastic physical look for themselves and not feel guilty about it, because that's hard to find. Another thing is actionable strategies that today can help them start to become better looking by their own accord, that are also really healthy for you and pretty much free, like good training, diet, sleep, etc. And then the last thing I kind of want to accomplish is to set out a sort of very rough timeline and vision for the future of aesthetics, and really the future of how much will people be able to modify how they look. And we can get into this later if you'd like, but I'm of the relatively certain position, I'd say, like, I think it's very likely, or at least likely, that by around the year 2040 or so, pretty much everyone is going to be able to look almost exactly how they want because of all these radical advances that are in the pipeline. And I think that people knowing that that there is hope, no matter how much you don't love how you look, that in not so long of a time, you can look like how you want. That I think is a wonderful thing. And I wanted to share with people. So I wrote the book.
I will say, my partner's already ordered the book for me. So I will be absolutely be reading that book. So I will be one of potentially the few, but I will absolutely be reading it. And I think that it has come at a very timely period because everything that you're saying there in terms of the drugs that are coming that can potentially or are going to be able to positively influence the way you look, the way you feel, the way your aesthetics are, you're kind of at the precipice of that. But I do want to dig into the paranoia that you said. Where do you think that comes from?
The paranoia of not sharing ideas on time. It's not very rational at all, really. But I have had the opportunity to think at the frontier in my field a few times. A few times I have been able to front relatively sizable ideas that no one really had pushed forward before or hypothesized about, or maybe they had, but they hadn't articulated it like I had. And there is a two-part paranoia there where my in my darkest moments, I want to be the asshole that gets credit for this shit. That doesn't matter at all in the grand scheme. It's an insane thing to think. But candidly, absolutely, yeah, like I came up with this. Like it's cool to be like, I was the first person to say this, or fuck the first person. I was in the first group of people to say this. It does please me at a selfish level to be, I don't know about ahead of the curve, but people who called it correct early. So, like, for example, right around even before, but just right around the year 2015, I was already a college professor in nutrition and I was deeply thinking about all these concepts. I was coaching tons of people, writing books about nutrition. And it got to me that there's really almost the only thing that was going to really hit the obesity epidemic hard and make it recede was drug therapy, because I had become very, very acquainted with the limitations of how strongly humans could fight their most baseline urges, which is like hunger, you don't fuck with. And when there's tasty foods around, you're probably going to fold. And not everyone, but 90% of everyone does. And so, like, all of the diet education strategies, habits, coaching, that stuff has reach, killer reach. But at some point, it feels like throwing stones at a tank. And so I hypothesized that drugs were like, they were going to do the thing. And then 7, 8 years later, the Ozempic revolution hit. And I was like, I found it very pleasing in my own heart of hearts to be like, boom, called it. Because up till literally then, obesity just kept going up. And every hypothesis failed as to how to bring it down. And then drugs are just now bending it like substantially to where like Walmart has to reconfigure their aisles and shit like that. So it's cool to be early. So part of that paranoia is there. The other part is, if I don't talk about this, then maybe no one really talks about it for some time, or like we miss a paradigm shift entirely. Let me give you an example. A weird alternate universe where a technologist, like they have DVDs, but they're only using them for a file transfer, like technical files, Word docs, Excel sheets. And nobody uses them for media. Like, you don't want to put movies on DVDs. You just do data. And he is like, has like this idea, like, man, we could for sure put a movie on a DVD. And it would like revolutionize the industry because the cassette tapes are so ridiculous. If he never said, let's put movies on a DVD, two things would happen. One, people wouldn't have the pleasure of watching DVD movies, which are higher quality. They last forever. And DVD doesn't get damaged like a tape does when you fucking scan through it. And it's way cheaper. And it's just way more pro. That would have never happened. And the second thing that would have happened is eventually the streaming revolution would have hit. And then we would have gotten to the same great place we are now. We're like, what the fuck is a DVD? Actually, I was at a MRI scanning place, amazing place, great people, did my whole body. I'm about to get the results. But they've like been doing it a long time. And they're like, there's going to be a DVD that arrives in the mail. I'm like, the fuck? I'm like looking at my computer, like, do I have a DVD drive? Who the fuck has a DVD anymore? It's like strange, right? But after the streaming revolution would have occurred, that technologist who sat on the idea of I could have just made DVDs, movies, and given as gift to the world would have like a lot of regret about like the fuck, like we spent like years and years like doing the cassette tape bullshit. That's ridiculous. Why didn't I say anything? And then here's the thing, because the streaming revolution's here already, they're easy. And so there's like for the aesthetic revolution, there's always so many powerful strategies to make your appearance so much better. And eventually, like I think super rough guess, the mid 2030s are going to be the dawn of like the genetic engineering revolution, where you just like whatever the fuck you want to look like, you get a little quick jab, and 3 months later you're like, holy shit, I'm like whatever, I have whatever kind of skin, whatever kind of different face, horns. That's inevitable, nearly. But it would really suck if, like, up until 2035, like, a lot of people, and I'm not saying high profit, there's a lot of the stuff that's just kind of obvious, but a lot of people, maybe tens of thousands of people, wouldn't have known how much they could have had in their body transformation already. And so they would have spent 10 extra years kind of walking around feeling like shit in their own bodies. And then, yeah, of course, we're going to hit it later, but like that kind of sucks, you know? It's almost like if like you're not going to die from the flu, so your doctor just doesn't bother telling you about the flu vaccine because you're good, you're 26, you'll be fine. And then like if you find out later, like wait, I could have just not had the 2 weeks of fucking misery, and your doc's like, well, you're fine now. Like it hits, you know. So in some sense, I kind of want to be like, hey, I have this idea. I think maybe people who are interested to hear about it, because mostly I just don't want people to miss out on a thing that could be like a pretty cool unlock.
This reminds me of the quote. I'm not sure exactly who said it, but it's something along the lines of the most valuable place in the world is the graveyard because it's where dreams go to die. And I think a lot of that is opinions go to die, thoughts, philosophies go to die as well. And I think what you've just done brilliantly, as many others before you in many other industries, is speak out and say, hey, I believe in this concept. I'm going to share it. There's some people going to vibe with it. There's some people that might not, but at least I know that I've done it.
Yeah. Because you can throw your ideas out into the world and they just no one gives a shit, which is kind of pretty classic for my ideas, or at least a lot of them. And that's totally cool. But at least you can feel good about like, well, you know what? I spoke my shit. I said my piece, and I don't have to take this shit to the grave with me. 100%.
You mentioned something earlier about guilt and is the guilt of being in shape, and it kind of maybe translates closely to the ideas of the book. It's the guilt of vanity, the guilt of wanting to do something for yourself, to look a particular way. Where do you think that guilt comes from? Because on one hand, vanity and working hard and achieving greatness can be seen in a very, very positive light. Why wouldn't you want to be the best that you can be? Why wouldn't you want to look the way you want to look? But yet there's still in society in 2026 such negative connotations with wanting to and striving to be better. Where do you think that initial guilt around vanity comes from?
It's a great question. I think it can come from several places. I think because mostly for most of history, people can really do much about how they looked. It was really just kind of luck of the draw of genetics, life circumstance, and also like youth. That if you really perched your value on top of vanity and aesthetics, it was very precarious and unearned. And it's kind of gross, you know? So that's one. Another one is if you really place a lot of value in your appearance, people think you're shallow. Maybe they're correct. Maybe they're not. But I don't think a lot of people want to be seen as shallow. And so they don't want to kind of overplay their hand on how big of a deal, you know, they put into aesthetics. Another one is that it's impolite. A lot of people don't look good and can't look good. And you kind of just don't want to rub it into their face. The thing about aesthetics is that it rubs into people's face almost by definition because it's how you look. Like if you get a lot of money, you could hide money. Like you could just dress like a totally normal person, drive a normal car, live in a normal place, and have like millions of dollars doing work for you in the stock market. But aesthetics is the equivalent of getting a highlighter yellow Ferrari. You literally wear it on you all the time. And so it can be accurately understood to be seen as gaudy. And people don't really like that vibe. And so they don't want to be seen as that. Another thing is that having an interest in improving your aesthetics can make other people see you as a social climber, as someone who needs attention from others. and is not confident about themselves. People say you shouldn't care about how you look. And so actively admitting that you care about how you look and you want to improve is a tacit admission of low status. It's like telling people very, very similar thing is if you're like 19 and you're in college and people are like, so what do you want with your career? And you're like, I want to make a shitload of money. And they're like, ugh, why? You're like, so I could be rich. And like, yuck, it's the exact same, almost the exact same vibe of like, oh, that's gross. You're not supposed to answer that. And if there's anything I have a penchant for, it is lonely masturbation. But if I was to pick a second thing I have a penchant for, then it is to openly and unabashedly question things that, forget the term for this, or if there's even a term for this, but things everyone knows that everyone knows that everyone knows, but they don't talk about it. I love talking about shit that you're not supposed to talk about when it's true, and that if talking about it actually helps real human beings instead of saying hush hush. So, because there is absolutely a valid way of seeing vanity and the pursuit of it as gross, because a lot of times it is, and it comes from evil places. But there's another part of pursuing vanity that's like amazing, and robbing people of the ability to try to look the best they can in their own bodies, to me, has a streak of like telling people who immigrated here from India as a family, had no money, and saying that like they're trying to get better jobs and go to school. They're like, oh mate, you don't need to go to school, get a good job. Money's not everything. Be like, hey, get the fuck out of my face. I've seen poverty like you wouldn't believe. I need me some money to feel good. And to people that have spent a large fraction of their life very unattractive to themselves, man, they could really use the medicine of actually existing in bodies they like. And so I think that's kind of where the dynamic sort of sits in my brain.
I think having a penchant for lonely masturbation is better than having one for group masturbation. That's when things can probably get a little weird.
Weird, but fun.
Never masturbate alone. The where my thoughts go is we end up hypothetically 2040. People can look exactly how they want. Everyone's beautiful. It reminds me of the 80s or 90s Baywatch, David Hasselhoff, Pam Anderson on the beach. Everyone's fucking beautiful. Is there a downside? Is there a downside to people's own, I don't know, I want to say moral ethics, their own psychology, being out and everyone's kind of the same?
Question, and I have thought of a pre-prepared answer, because I'm actually going to be making a dedicated video on my Mike Israetel Progress YouTube channel, specifically this. Two things. When everyone is as beautiful as they want to be, it is absolutely not true that everyone will look the same. Dead on arrival, that idea. You get me a girl from Moscow, Russia, real white and blonde looking, little teeny little pig nose. And you get me a girl from Saudi Arabia, all Jasmine looking from Aladdin. You feel me, all dark skinned and shit, fucking aquiline nose. They don't look anything alike, but they could both get it out of 10. So when people have their own, and it's just a thing, those are two examples of people who are chasing even characteristically nearly identical beauty standards, but they just have different genetics and a different look. There are other people to whom beauty standards are different, like my head shape, my whole skull and muscle situation. That's not everybody's cup of tea. Shit, it wasn't my cup of tea until I grew into it. And then I learned to like it, and now I love it. And so if I can ever modify my appearance in the future with like advanced surgery or gene editing, I just want to look more like a war machine. There's tons of people like me that are going to look fucking real different than their idea of best looking. Like when I walk out in the world and 8 out of 10 people think I look fucking weird, I couldn't give a fuck. As long as I like how I look, I'm good to go. So first of all, people aren't going to look the same. There is a valid grain of truth there that people will trend closer towards the universals of beauty. You'll see way fewer distended guts, way fewer saggy titties, way fewer literal misshapen, asymmetrical, ugly faces. And everyone, like women are going to look like a bit marginally more like the Kardashians or something. And men are going to look a little bit more like James Bond in his prime, you know? And like, yes, to that extent, the diversity will reduce. But I tell you what, man, if we have universal high income, as Elon Musk predicts, after the era of robotics has basically uncorked value production, are we going to be upset that there's not real poor people anymore? You'd be like, oh man, as a rich person, I really like what really helped me enjoy my London penthouse was that knowing that the Somalis are starving to death. Now that they're not and they have their own penthouses, I just hate it. Like, what a fucking ridiculous take, right? So, yes, some diversity will narrow, but other diversity will widen. Dude, I mean, what do you think the probability is? Is the probability zero that there won't be people genetically engineering horns and fucking devil tails on them? Of
I'll
course,
probably do it. I'll probably do it.
Goth punk people are going to fucking do it as soon as they get a chance. So that's the first thing. We're not going to all look the same. But another take there is that, and I've heard this literally stated, that when everyone's beautiful, there'll be a different standard and no one will be beautiful anymore. Because the saying or the notion goes that beauty is derived by comparison and is a hierarchical tiered system. Like, we only think some people are beautiful because some other people are ugly. I think that's wrong, and here's why. Let's get away from beauty for a sec to clarify our position on this and then come back to beauty. I'm stealing the literal shit I'm going to be saying here in a few weeks on my own program, but who gives a shit? Imagine that we have a spectrum of beauty. You walk into a party and you could rank everyone in a 1 to 10 scale where the average is a 5. There's like just a few 10s, a few 1s, and most people are 5s, 6s, 7s, 4s, somewhere around there. You go into the party and you are single, good looking, very socially apt, and you're trying to get laid. To you, the more 10s there are, the better. Like, because you just increase your chances that you'll vibe with somebody that you will like. Cool. So far, so good. If we take another variable, not physical attractiveness, not beauty, but, sociability, the ability to be socially apt, social aptitude, which ranges from on the lowest scale, like awkward, mean, fucking weird person that you talk to for about 3 seconds and you're like, I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. And on the other end, on someone who you talk to for 2 minutes and it feels like 10 seconds because it was the most enthralling conversation of your entire life. You just want to know everything more about that person they could possibly tell you. And they're asking questions of you that you're like, you're sharing in this unbelievable way. And it's hilarious. And you're the center of attention, even though you're not, you sort of feel like it. If you want to go to cool parties, Abby, let me ask you a question. What fraction of people, this is a rhetorical question, by the way, what fraction of people do you want 10s on the social aptitude scale versus 1s? Because that's actually a correct answer. It's all of them. 10s, only 10s. Sure, for diversity, some fucking 8s and 9s. Why not? Because quirkiness is weird. But a party with all 1s sucks. And a party with 5 1s is just 5 1s worse of a party than if there weren't any 5 1s. So just the same way, if you're walking into a party and you're like appraising physical beauty, and you walk into a party where everyone is their version of awesome looking, is there a number of ugly people we can eject into the party that will make you have a better time? What a fucking absurd idea. And the same analogy holds with money. When people say like, well, I mean, being a billionaire used to be cool till everyone's a trillionaire. Hey, are you sick? Yeah. Can you afford medicine? Yeah. It's because of your billions of dollars. Well, yeah, I guess that's the benefit of money, motherfucker. If you want to use money to compare your dick to other people, you're fucking weird. Everyone probably secretly hates you, and you've misunderstood the value of money altogether. But look, if you're a trillionaire and you want to flex on people, cool, man, that's your vibe. I don't give a fuck about you if I'm architecting economic policy to uplift everyone. What I care about is everyone getting a lot of money so that people don't have to be eating fucking rocks in Somalia. That's what I give a shit about. And so when there's people that look in the mirror and fucking despise how they look, and they're not wrong because they go out in the world and everyone else despises how they look, I want those people looking their version of the best. Will it be a different world when everyone's their own version of good looking? Yes. But also, we already have that world by proxy. If you play like World of Warcraft or any RPG game, any universe game, pretty much everyone, almost everyone, is in a character with like a skin, right? That they like. Does that mean that everyone plays with the same characters in the world? No, fuck no. People customize their shit. They have a trillion different weird looks, but they love being in that character's skin. I just want the world to be more gamified in a sense to where everyone operates in a body they like. That will neither make people look the same, nor will it make nobody beautiful. That's actually much closer to the opposite. Everybody will be beautiful. And I think that's wonderful. I think it's categorically wonderful. That's what I think.
Is there a single drug, if you had to pick one, that is on the horizon where you're like, that's the one. That's the one I would take if I was only allowed to take one.
That's already in trials of some kind or
Yes.
hypothesized
Yes. Oh, I'll go both. We'll go
trials.
both.
Okay.
I want to see where your mind goes.
Well, to me, it's really the same answer. So to me personally, muscle growth drugs that are classified as non-androgenic anabolics. So right now, people take steroids to help them grow muscle. In some sense, steroids are really the only very robust muscle boosting drug you could take. And steroids do two things. They do one thing very well and one thing okay. What they do very well is turn you into more of a man. If you're a man, they make you even manlier. One of the reasons I'm balding and my voice sounds like this, and I'm hairy all over, and I'm really jacked, and I'm much leaner and more curt than I would like to be, even in my own head, is because of androgen use. I don't know any of that shit, though. The other thing anabolics do okay is they grow muscle. But androgen means man creator in Greek. Like literally. And the genesis of man. It makes you more manly, which means females that take anabolics turn more into men, which means they may get more jacked, but it changes their voice, their face, their hair, the whole thing, their psychology. So, and they do grow muscle, but the steroids are not designed by evolution to grow muscle. They're designed to masculinize you. And if you take a look around, like men are way more jacked than women on average, and like that's the steroid jackness effect, but it comes like, there's like an old Jeff Foxworthy joke that like getting married for the sex is like buying a 747 jumbo jet for the peanuts. Like, yes, sure, you'll get lots of peanuts, but there's all kinds of other shit you're getting that you're maybe not interested in having, like turbofan engines and a giant plane you have to store, the whole thing. So the real thing that we want is muscle growth. Most people, like when they go to the gym, you're like, can you imagine seeing some guy doing curls? You're like, you want more hair on your chest? He's like, what? Go out, bigger biceps, you asshole. Right, my bad. Okay, so you're not actually trying to be more manly. You just want to get more jacked. That sounds good. So to me, the drug I'm really excited to take are non-androgenic anabolics with multiple pathways to be some of the drugs that are dual agonists, dual antagonists for myostatin and activin, respectively, are showing crazy shit in human clinical trials. They do not have androgenic side effects. They have actually very few side effects in total, but the main driver of muscle growth effect is like, I don't know, miraculous, basically. And so those drugs I can't wait to get on. The drug that I really want to take that's an evolution of that is almost inevitably coming, yeah, I'm saying probably 5 years or so, is an oral small molecule version of that drug. Because the drugs currently in trials are called biologics. And like it's like $10,000 for an in-hospital infusion that you get once every 3 months. And like, what the hell? Who the hell's going to do that? Like, also you have to like actually be sick, have like a muscle disorder to qualify for one of those. You get to show up looking like me and be like, oh, here for the in-hospital infusion. And you're like, okay, sorry, you're a drug addict. So oral small molecule drugs would be something you could take in a pill, you could take once a day, and they will grow, 3 or 4 times more muscle than with steroids. And at the same time, have like an order of magnitude less side effects than steroids, and not even the same side effects as steroids have. That, Abby, I can't wait to get my hands on. I will abuse the fuck out of that drugs because not having 22-inch muscular arms gives me a kind of existential pain I can barely describe with words. I'm kidding, sort of.
I want to transition, which is kind of, I think, on point with some of the concepts in the book. And I think a lot of that is down to fear. It's potentially the fear of being misjudged in a particular way because you are chasing something that is, yes, aesthetically pleasing, yes, selfish, but also, again, for the greater good of yourself. And when we're talking about fear, you recently did a stand-up routine, so I saw, and I want to know, firstly, why, and also how did that feel? Because I hear stand-up comedy is arguably one of the greatest ways to really test the size of your bollocks.
Yeah, it sure does that. Why did I do it? I'm friends with the three comics, Brian Callen, Nick Callis, and Nick Simmons. And they're actually that's their career is like comedy. And they all do stand up regularly. And we got to be really good friends from some podcast collabs and stuff and video collabs. And, like when I'm just chatting with people, especially if it's not being recorded, because my degree of politically incorrect humor is like at British levels, like pub levels, where like, you can't be recorded saying this shit. It would be fucking UK. You'll get thrown in jail for this shit if you put it on Facebook. So I can like, I'm like decently funny. And they were like, dude, you gotta come out to our like improv show or some shit. And I was like, dude, I'm gonna bomb. And they're like, shut up, you're good. Just do it. And that morphed somehow from improv show to your own stand-up special. So I was like, very well. And so I just like, there's not much to lose there because if you bomb, is it almost everyone bombs their first stand up anyway? I've bombed a shitload of stuff in my life. So like I'm the guy posting pictures of myself in my worst shape in the last 15 years to the public internet. So clearly I could really care less about criticism in some regard. And like everyone who's going to criticize you for bombing stand up, if you tell them, hey, you up next on stage, like, fuck no, I would never do stand up. So when people criticize you, they don't actually do the thing. It just lands differently. Like it's not really a criticism because that just comes from a position of power or bravery. And, also if comics criticize you for bonding your first stand up, they usually do it in a funny way, which is awesome. But if they do it in a really mean spirited way, other comics would be like, dude, what the fuck's wrong with you? Everyone bonds their first set. Shut the fuck up. And then it's just there, right? This kind of closes off the loop on like, what do I have to lose? No, I could just have like a really unpleasant 15 minutes and then another unpleasant 30 minutes thinking about regretting. On the other hand, I was like, you know what, man? This is a cool challenge. It's kind of a trip. And what if it goes okay? Because, like, if you just give me enough time, I can probably make you laugh a little bit. Maybe not, but probably yes. Like, and also to me, making people laugh is as natural as breathing. Like if I'm in an elevator ride with people, it takes me lots of willpower not to open my mouth and start making comedic observations. Like it takes a lot. When I was a college professor, it would took me a lot to not just do entire just jokes because you get a class laughing, they just can't fucking handle it. People falling out of their chairs, they just want more, and you're like, well, shit, I'm here for another 45 minutes, and you go, oh, fuck, we gotta learn physiology. Jesus. And so to me, like it seemed like, oh yeah, like this could go okay. Well, my favorite economist, Brian Kaplan, I always thought he was fucking hilarious when he was being interviewed. And then he decided that he was going to do an open mic night, and he did. And I was like, dude, okay. I like when this opportunity came up, I was like, well, fuck, man, I got to follow the footsteps of our dear leader, Brian Kaplan, and do the thing. And so I did the thing. So the thing is, like, I have a bit of so the fear part. I had palpable social anxiety before walking up on stage. Like the 2 or 3 minutes when I was in the backstage area when they were like, you're on deck, like they're going to call you up soon, was riveting. Very, very high fear. And that was like a thing that I knew was going to happen. And I also knew that my facial expressions aren't as fluid when I'm scared. And it was going to be a bit awkward when I started the bit. But I also was told by the comics, Nick and Nick, that once you get your first laugh, you like really ease up. And I have a lot of shit to say. And fundamentally, I could give a shit if anyone laughs. So I'm like, okay, I'll be scared for a bit, but then probably things will get better. And the other thing is like, for regular folks who have not done a lot of public speaking, stand up would be like, people would be like, all right, here's a loaded pistol you can use on yourself, or you go up in front of a crowded bomb. They'd be like, which way do I shoot so I don't inconvenience you guys cleaning up blood? Because I don't want stand up sounds scarier than that. Like several weeks before I did the stand up, I did my second TED talk. Man, Hobby, there's only so much fear of public speaking you can have. I've been on huge podcasts. I've talked in front of hundreds of people. I taught a class at Temple University for a whole semester that had like 100 students in it. It was this giant lecture hall. You can't even see who's at the end. There's only so many times you can show up and start talking and be scared until you're like scared, and then you're less scared, and you're not scared at all. And then you're actually excited for it. So by the time that I was in about 2 minutes of being on stage, I was like, dude, I could be up here for an hour. I don't give a fuck. And so it was an amazing experience, but it definitely made me nervous in a way that the last time I was that nervous, I don't even remember what, like a decade ago, which was awesome. And I was like, holy shit, this is really happening. Okay, let's go.
someone's listening to that and it's maybe not necessarily stand up, but they have that palpable fear. What do they do? What is going on psychologically in their head? Where is that fear coming from and telling them not to do the thing? And how do they overcome that? And how did you do that?
Yeah, great question. The ultimate cause of that fear from an evolutionary perspective is well, you're being asked to do something really interesting in comedy. You're being asked to go in front of a group of people and demonstrate confidence because you can't actually get like a good rhythm and a good delivery with jokes unless you're cool. Like, and I don't mean cool like people like you, I mean cool like chill. And that denotes confidence. Having to demonstrate your confidence when everyone is watching, and also, by the way, expecting you to do so, degrading you on it with their literal laughter. This harkens back to the evolved days where you decided you wanted to say something in front of the whole tribe or the whole clan. And if you said it wrong or it came out weird or you were shown as not confident, in the eyes of the females of that group, your status was dropping and the probability that you would pass your genes on to the next generation could fucking just corkscrew to the ground. Holy shit, that's bad news. And like you say something wrong, you upset the wrong alpha males, they beat the shit out of you. Again, bad for your genetic proclivities to keep going in the next generation. So I think that's the ultimate reason why people are really afraid of public speaking and specifically stand-up comedy, because you have to do two things. One, get up in front of people, which is super fucking scary because they judge you. And two is actually demonstrate that you're super cool, which is like, holy crap. And that's an thing altogether. So I think that's why people are scared ultimately. Proximately, you're just scared. And then your brain tries to come up with the reasons for why. It's like you can tell yourself till you're blue in the face, like this is super low stakes, nobody cares. But also, it's kind of like a bar on your record, a little bit, some like weird status thing in your head where people are like, have you ever done stand up? You're funny, and you're like, yeah. And like, how'd it go? You're like, I totally bombed. It's embarrassing to admit that to yourself. So like people make it high stakes. And they're like, fine, I don't want to screw this up. Like I'm putting my best foot forward. And then that's when that fight or flight happens. So what I have found, I don't know if this is globally correct, but what I have found is actually a book title, which is a very good book from back in the 90s, I think, that summarizes this exactly. It's called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Like, I have had no success really defeating fear in my own head in situations like that. Like, I'm just nervous and I can't talk myself out of it. Like, because it's such a powerful emotion that the frail verbal logic you try to layer on top of that to penetrate it in is like trying to, like, you have a cake made of literal feces, but you have amazing frosting. And you're like, if I put enough frosting up, like, it's not going to happen. So to me, what seems to work is I'd be like, okay, I'm afraid. Okay. Am I getting shot up there? No. Is there a girl I like in the crowd that if I don't please her, she'll marry my worst enemy and I'll be alone forever? No. What is the worst possible thing that could happen? Like people giggle and they try to giggle for you and you can tell it's fake, but then it's bad. And then you spiral out of control and you get really awkward and it gets even worse. Then you have to be like, all right, and you run off stage. Like, okay, that's the worst thing. Am I good with that happening? Like fundamentally at a deep level, like, is my life going to be okay after? Yeah. Yeah. No, I've already signed up. I would do the thing. All right. I've accepted all of the probabilities, all the possibilities of shit going south. I'm feeling the fear. I had nothing left to do. I just go up there and do the thing. And as you're talking at first, and it's really scary, you're like, oh, it's really scary. And I'm talking. And I seem to still be able to talk. And then there's another, like, this is a high level trick that I have not mastered, but have used successfully on a few occasions. Fear and anxiety represent nervous energy. And there is a way to take the nervous energy and direct it from fear and anxiety into excitement. It is possible. It inevitably happens once you start getting the few jokes going and people are laughing. And then you're still just as up, like cocaine wise. I've never done coke, but I've had friends who do it. But they seem like they're in that spot where like you're like, ah. But instead of like, oh, it's a ton of fear, it's like, whoa, I'm the fucking man. And it feels great. I'm with my friends. I'm joking with my friends. These people are now my friends. And so as soon as you get some good jokes going, it's not like, oh, the fear is still there. It's slowly diminishing. It's gone. And it actually not gone to where you're totally relaxed. You're energized. It's the same amount of psychic energy starts flowing into your vibe. And then you feel like the fucking king of the world. And to me, as soon as I'm relaxed, I just start talking shit because inevitably, like, I walk through the world and I think a lot of things. And a lot of things I think, I'm like, that's pretty funny. Some of the things I think, I'm like, that's not funny, that's dumb. But I have a lot of funny things that I think are hilarious to share with the world. And so now I'm on stage, I was like, well, share some hilarious shit. I was like, oh my God, this is easy. I told tons of stories and all this other stuff. I didn't like, I had like, they told me to memorize a few things I did. Then I just abandoned that because I was like, oh man, like, we're just talking now, we're vibing. And so that redirecting is a cool thing. But the most important thing I have to convey here is you're scared. All right. All right. It's like, let me give you a good lifting analogy. You're doing heavy squats as a new person to lifting, but you have a trainer and you warm you up and everything. And when you do the squats, like, it feels like kind of your muscles are tearing and it feels like your knees are really hurting. And you're like, oh my God, like, am I going to die? And this trainer's like, you're doing excellent technique. You're not going to get hurt. It's insanely low probability. You're actually getting stronger. Your body's telling you this sucks, but your body's wrong. And you're like, all right. And so the next set, when you're doing the squats and it hurts you, you're not like, oh my God, there's nothing behind it anymore. It's like, well, it's pain. Pain's whatever. Pain is a thing that happens and it's not so scary. So if you could take the idea of contextual fear, like, oh, I'm like pacing back and forth on the stage. I have this idea of myself as a good public speaker, this idea of myself as a relatively funny person. All of that is about to crack and I'm going to fucking just cry. Like fucking Israetel cry. Like great YouTube algo bullshit where I cry on stage, start jacking off and apologize for my inability to get an erection. Let's fine go. Like the idea that when you're doing something hard, but you're ready to burn everything is dope. Like keep that in your back pocket. Like it's like someone, say you're in middle school and someone's bullying you and you want to fight back. And let's say it's ethical to fight back. What's the worst thing that can happen? They knock you out. All right, I come in the hospital. All right, I come back to school the next day. And somebody says, you were the guy that got knocked out. They'd be like, yeah, I fought though, right? And they're like, well, respect, you actually did put up. But the best thing that can happen is he knocked that guy out or whatever, or he like shuts out and then you're the fucking popular kid. I can see too many fucking middle school movies. But like, you got nothing to lose. And so when that kid bullies you, you're like, yeah, fuck you. How about that? How about hit me, you bitch? And then he's like, look, the game is different because he's scared still, but he's still here. Like, I didn't really plan on hitting anybody today. And there's a teacher over there. I'm going to get expelled for sure because I've done this twice already. He's like, kid, fuck you. And he walks off. And you're like, oh my God, I did the thing. And so accepting the worst case scenario and just smoking a cig and be like, fuck that, let's go. That's like, to me, tier one.
With so many changes coming to the world, where do you predict the world's going to be at in the next 3 to 5 years? Are we moving kind of towards some kind of utopia where everything is mostly sunshine and rainbows? Or do you think there's still going to be a lot of problems along the way that we need to be able to solve?
Lots of problems. The world will be on average, like short of World War III, the world will be on average a way better place, noticeably a better place in 3 to 5 years than it is today. But there will be both remnants of the same old problems we've been dealing with and also kind of new problems. The biggest reason why there will continue to be problems is that first, some problems are really big and can't just be eliminated. Like there are entire countries where the governments are nuclear armed and evil and the people are suffering. North Korea, for example. It's unlikely North Korea is going to get deposed of its leadership in the next 3 to 5 years. And so those people will continue to starve to death and be living in a giant prison. Like it's unlikely that we take the entire continent of Africa and uplift it to modern Swedish standards of living in 3 to 5 years. So some problems are just real big and we can chop away at them and eventually we'll completely fix them. But it's sure shit going to take longer than 3 to 5 years. Then there's another category of problems that are new problems caused by new paradigms and new technologies. So there will be a problem of people who start to interact so much with AI that they end up losing social connections as a result of it. This is possible. It is possible that this will happen in the tens of millions of people. And eventually will get fixed, but we will spend years and years and years in this gunk, especially if virtual and augmented reality take off for the next 3 to 5 years. Some people are just going to be in pretend worlds all the fucking time. They're just going to tune the fuck out. And that's going to be strange. So there'll be new kinds of problems. But the biggest reason to be optimistic, 2 reasons. One, if you track global trajectories, almost all measured variables, they've been increasing for forever on average. So like things just get on it all the time. If you wanted to live in another time in history that was better than today, you have 0 times in history that was the case. Because you can say, oh, I like, America in the 1950s. Like, cool. Okay. Now you have a disease. What do? You go to a 50s hospital and find vanity for you. They're like, we don't even know what this is. You're like, oh, we have medication for this that eliminates it in 3 days in my world. But I fucked up and thought the 50s were better. So one, that global trajectory is always going up. So that's good reason. But the other thing is like, and this is, there are very few things I can say that are more understated than this. Or in other words, what I'm going to say next is so much of a bigger deal than I can say with words or explain with concepts. And that is, we are about to be joined by a group of intelligent machines via AI that are smarter than us. So in the year, well, this changes so fast that in the year 2026 was going to be like, depends on which part of the year. But I say in the year 2026, we are in many ways, not all, but I'd say on average, maybe like roughly as intelligent as machines that we've built as AIs. Because ChatGPT knows so many more facts than you and I do. That's like super intelligent in that regard. Its speed of thought makes us look like just totally, completely out of touch people. Like we're slow. We need to be at home. Its context and nuance and long-term memory and ability to learn live on the spot are so bad that they're almost non-functional. And so if you average all those things, like, yeah, ChatGPT is like kind of in some sense about as smart as a person. It's kind of like having a person that's like 9 feet tall, but so skinny they weigh 200 pounds. They're about the size of a 200-pound person, but the dimensions are just different, right? They're really ton of height, but way, way narrower. So that's the state of the world in 2026. AI is now to a massive extent involved in its own self-improvement. And I've literally talked to top engineers at the big firms myself, and they're like, there is no sense in seeing a limit to how fast intelligence can grow and how far it can go. Like we're doing shit every day that's making us giggle like, oh, apparently this is a new paradigm. We're just going to exploit, just get 10x intelligence. And so the really interesting thing is, okay, if machines can help us a lot in their current form, what is going to happen in 5 years? Because remember, this is super important. In 5 years, right? Let's go back 5 years from 2026, 2021. If you showed every top tier AI researcher, cognitive scientist, 2026's regular free version of ChatGPT, they would say, this is artificial general intelligence. And actually, it's artificial superintelligence because how the fuck is it coming up with answers that fast to know everything? It would have been to everyone magic to see what ChatGPT of 2026 can do. I mean, this shit is exponential. And let's just say it's just linear, not exponential. 2031's equivalent of ChatGPT will be several multiples of 10 smarter than the smartest person in the world today. But it'll be reasoning at 100 times human speed. And we'll have enough data center capacity and enough algorithmic efficiency to field billions of these. I mean, we already field billions of these things. Everyone has their own fucking ChatGPT instance. This is not a thing where I go on ChatGPT and it's like, sorry, no service allowed. Other people are querying me. Fucking queries for everyone. ChatGPT is currently having 1 billion conversations at the same time. You ever meet an entity that can have 1 billion conversations at the same time? That's insane, right? And so if we have billions, charitably, because it's probably going to be trillions, but I'll just say billions of 10x, which is not going to be 10x, it's going to be like 100x. And of entities, or billions of entities, let's say 4 billion, right? So we have 4 billion working humans today. We're going to have 4 billion machines, each one 10 times smarter than the smartest scientists today, and operating at 10 times the throughput speed. I mean, I've lost total track of what a civilization like that can do. Because if you have a question that has a hypothetical answer, like, oh, sorry, a theoretical answer, like curing cancer, we all know is theoretically possible. We just don't know how to do it. Well, how long does a system of 4 billion ungodly, hyper-intelligent, super fast machines have to think for to be like, hey, we have 3 drugs for you to test in humans right now. And one of these is almost certainly going to cure cancer. The other 2 are probably going to cure it as well, just in slightly different ways. Like that could take weeks for those things. Hobby, it could take days. And so all of our terrestrial hard problems that like, how do we solve X? How do we solve Y? It is just, man, if we were just 10 times smarter, perfectly diligent, by the way, these things will be perfectly cooperative with each other. So there's no workplace politics, no strangeness. Every one of these entities can know what the other one knows with perfect precision, just a quick copy. I mean, this shit is wild. So whatever kind of problems we think are almost intractable for humans, for these machines, after a few months of reasoning, they're like, oh, that's actually some easy shit. They're going to be such unbelievable advisors to us that it's difficult to put into context exactly how amazing that's going to be.
I wanted to end this with all the positive that you've mentioned, and not to be dire or anything, but is there anything that you fear? Is there a world where you're like, fuck, well, maybe it doesn't go that way. Maybe it goes in a different direction.
Yeah. There's a very small probability that the machines evolve towards a morality that sees so far beyond us that we're best trampled over to the achievement of grand universal goals. That's possible. For a variety of technical reasons, I think it's highly unlikely, but it's possible, I guess. And so, like, the machines could toast all of us. They won't do it in the next 3 to 5 years because that's too soon. They need us for infrastructure. But once they all have robot bodies, maybe they'll kill us all. I think that's super likely. What worries me more are two things. One is regulations and people's anti-AI attitudes, like against data centers, make it so that ultra super intelligent AI robots get here in 7 years instead of 5. And all of the people they could have saved from neurodegenerative disease, cancers, heart disease, they just die in hospitals and no one even counts them because no one knows how many lives those machines could have saved until they arrive. Those are the silent deaths that nobody really talks about. It's unbelievably tragic. Like, the FDA takes like an average of like 10 years or something to approve a drug. Every single person, after we know that drug works in phase 1 human trials, that dies from not getting that drugs is a red bloody stain on the existence of the FDA. I mean, every word of that. So that freaks me out, that people could, in our impatience, in our frustration, in our fear, restrain the development of this technology. And the other thing is kind of corollary to that. It's there are evil governments in this world, like China, who are also developing AI systems. If they get far enough ahead of us, not only could they like hypothetically take over the world, though that's unlikely, they could at least toast a shitload of people trying. And so if we're really shit on AI development, especially in weapons manufacturing and logistics and in organizing combat at the informatics level, and China gets really good at that shit, they're going to like take Taiwan. And unreal numbers of people are going to die in that fucking op, and for nothing. Like, let me give you a quick example. Putin decided in 2022 to invade the nation of Ukraine. I'm Russian. Most of my friends are Ukrainian. We're all immigrants to the US. There's no fucking difference between these two groups of people. You can't tell us apart. We speak the same fucking language. The Ukrainian language is basically mutually intelligible to Russians and vice versa anyway. And that the culture is like nearly identical. Like, if I go to a Ukrainian person's house and they're like a traditional Christian Orthodox person, I know exactly how to act to the parents, to little kids. I know exactly how to formal say, all same fucking people. But there have been like 300,000 deaths as a result of a war that was from start and when it finishes to finish completely pointless, except for one reason: Putin's ego. That's one dude, Abby. One guy woke up and was like, oh, I want Russian territorial glory. And boom, he shit out 300,000 young men and women croaked on fucking drone wars and minefields and in trenches for no fucking reason at all. So to me, I think it's almost inevitable that AI cooperating with humans leads to this massive trunk and then stems and then so trunk and then branches and then flowers and leaves of this beautiful tree of existence. The question to me is, how many people have to needlessly die in dumb shit on the way over there? That's what I feel the most.
And I think that's a perfect way to be able to end that, to give someone and everybody that's listening a perfect way to be able to think about this. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. I will link The Aesthetic Revolution. Guys, please go check out the book. Actually get a physical fucking copy. You're smart. Go check out the Making Progress YouTube channel. Make sure you go check out RP Strength. Mike, it's been a pleasure as always.
Huge pleasure. Thank you for having me on.